Hello. If you are new to large format and are looking to buy your first lenses, or if you're an existing user and are looking to add lenses to your system, there are certain things that you should know. The chances are you'll be buying second hand. Generally speaking, they're very reliable, but there are certain things you do need to check. Okay, so you found a second-hand large format lens that you're interested in. What do you need to look for? What do you need to check? I'm going to quickly run through the various functions on the lens, and as I do so, I'll just explain what you need to keep an eye open for, particularly with large format lenses. Fundamentally, they're very, very simple. You have a front optical section, a rear optical section, which both unscrew. You have a shutter mechanism in between, and the shutter mechanism is mounted to the lens panel. Now, this is a Linhof lens panel, so it'll fit Linhof and Wista. When you buy the lens, you need to make sure you get the right sized panel to fit your camera. If the lens doesn't come fitted in a panel, you need to make sure that the hole drilled in the panel is the right size for the lens, but any decent dealer will give you guidance there. There are only a small number of combinations, and it's very easy to work it out. So to actually mount the lens, you unscrew the rear section here, and there's a little metal retaining ring. You drop the panel on, you then turn the retaining ring and screw it up, and you get a special tool which just tightens that up. And then you just screw the rear element, or the rear section rather, back onto the lens. Really is a very, very straightforward process. Now, some large format lenses don't have shutters because they're fitted onto cameras that have built-in shutters, but the vast majority of large format lenses do have shutters. So when you're buying, you're going to have to check the shutter. First thing to do is just to stick it on 1 second. Just cock the shutter. Now this is the shutter cocking lever here, and then just fire the shutter using this little silver shutter actuation lever there. Now in practice in the field, you'll have a cable release screwed into that. Do use it with a cable release screwed in, because if you try to activate it like I am now, it's very easy to cause vibration, particularly with lighter wooden field cameras. If they're not absolutely rigid, doing it with your finger just there can cause vibration. So you're much better off actually using a correct cable release, and it's a standard cable release you can get anywhere. So that's the shutter cocking. So just cock the shutter, fire it on 1 second, and make sure it's a really, really healthy shutter sound. Then move it across to half a second and do the same. Then to go to 1/4 of a second. And as you move through the speeds, you can hear that the speed is changing. You're not timing it, obviously, but what you are doing is making sure that it's opening and closing. And as you reduce the speed, it is opening and closing faster. Now, if you do find it sticking, and particularly on the slower speeds, on the 1 second, if it does stutter, then that's a sign that the shutter needs servicing. And certainly if it sticks open, that's a sign that the shutter needs servicing. Just then move the lens up to a 500th, up to the fastest shutter speed. Again, cock the shutter, hold the lens up to a light source, and just look through. And just make sure as you fire the shutter, you can see a quick flash of light. You're not timing it, obviously. You can't time it at 1/500th of a second. What you're doing is making sure it's opening. And if you can see it opening, try it again on a 250th, just try it on a 250th. And as long as it's opening, you can be fairly sure the shutter is healthy. It's very unusual to find a faulty shutter where the slow speeds are working well and where the higher speeds are firing well. You'd normally see the slow speeds are sticking or the top speeds aren't opening, and that then is a flag, and that then is a signal that you need to get the lens serviced. The other thing to check is the shutter opening lever. Now this is this little black lever here on this particular lens. If you look, as I pull this lever across, it opens the shutter up. That's just you can use it when it's mounted to the camera. You open the shutter up, open the aperture up, which obviously is essential for the viewing. So make sure that's opening and closing. When it's open, just move the aperture around and just make sure the aperture mechanism is opening and closing as it should be. And also make sure it's forming a symmetrical shape. Sometimes the aperture blades can come out of alignment. And if that happens, you'll see that the shape isn't symmetrical. So again, if you see that one blade is further across to the center or further away from the center, that's a sign the lens does need servicing. If you use flash, you can just plug a flash in there to the flash sink, set it to a 500th, and just fire the flash with the flash pointing at the lens. Just look through the lens as you fire to the 500th. As you fire the flash, you should be blinded by the light as the shutter opens and closes. If it fires the flash but you don't see the light coming through the lens, again, that shows as a flash sync issue, and the lens will need to be serviced. Now the next thing to check, now this is really very, very important, are the optics. Have a very close look at the front elements. Have a very close look at the back elements to make sure there are no scratches or no coating marks. Now some of these lenses are getting on a bit. I mean, these lenses can easily be 30 or 40 years old, so it's not unusual to have a few marks on the glass, but that does impact the value. Then have a look through. Open it up, full aperture, and just have a look through and shine a light through, and make sure there's no misting or fungus inside. Now I'll put a link at the top of the screen now that explains more about fungus and misting. It's something you must know about, and if you do see fungus or misting inside lenses, just walk away. It is a nightmare. But as I say, have a look at the link I'll post. That'll give you more information. The final thing to check, particularly with Schneider lenses, is for something called Schneideritis. It is very common with Schneider lenses. You do see it with non-Schneider lenses as well, but it is certainly most common in these Schneider large format lenses. Just have a look into the lens. Everything you see in the lens should be black. Sometimes you can see white spots inside all the way around. It looks like it's covering the whole surface. Now, if you look on eBay and you look at these things listed on eBay, I can guarantee that probably 50% of the lenses listed that are made by Schneider, look at the pictures, you'll see little spots all over the inside of the lens. Now, that isn't necessarily an issue. There is a great deal of debate about whether Schneideritis affects the optical performance of large format lenses. Generally speaking, I think the consensus of opinion is if it isn't too bad, it has no effect whatsoever. It's actually caused when the black coating on the outside of the optical elements within the lens itself begins to break down. So you have convex and concave lenses. Convex lenses are this shape, like a traditional magnifying glass. They're thick in the middle, thin on the outside. You also have concave lenses, which are thin in the middle and thick on the outside. Now, with the concave lenses, thin on the middle, thick on the outside, they actually paint around the outside of the lens, put a black paint on the outside of the lens to prevent reflections. And it's that black paint that begins to disintegrate and break away, and you have these little white spots forming underneath. And those white spots, the reflections of those white spots, then sort of bounce around inside the lens. So it looks like it's all the way through the lens, but it's in fact not in the optical path. So just be aware of that. If you see it in the lens, if it's one or two little spots, not too much of an issue. If it's covered, I'll be a little bit more cautious, and possibly I would expect a discount. I wouldn't want to spend top dollar for a lens that has a lot of Schneideritis. So keep an eye open for that. The only other things I should mention is spots of dust, but a few little spots of dust in these things is really quite common. A, because you have to take the lens apart to get the panel on, and B, because the shutters are not sealed. So it's quite common to get dust inside. But as I mentioned earlier, just be very, very conscious about fungus. Okay, that's pretty much it. I hope that's been useful. If you have any comments, please stick them in the box below. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.